This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. Jason Warner, K-State Cow-Calf Extension Specialist, kicks off the show by previewing an upcoming event where he and other K-State specialists will be discussing the market, beef quality assurance, nutrition, farm bill, and other topics. Today's show continues with part of an episode from the Barry Flinchbaugh Center for Ag and Food Policy as Mark Edelman, Iowa State University, Jenny Ifft, Kansas State University, and Brad Lubin, University of Nebraska at Lincoln, share their opinions on the agricultural economy. K-State horticultural entomologist Raymond Cloyd wraps the show with an update on insect activity. That and more is coming up ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Thursday show talking about the High Plains Journal Live Conference with K-State Cow-Calf Extension Specialist Jason Warner. Jason, thanks for joining us today.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Shelby, for the opportunity as always.
Jason, the High Plains Journal Live Conference used to be called something else, and it has more components to it now. So can you share with our listeners, what is this conference?
Absolutely, Shelby. Really just wanted to take the opportunity here today to highlight the upcoming conference this year, High Plains Journal Live, which many folks out there may resonate with Cattle U, Sorghum U, Alfalfa U, as some of the other previous programs that were held primarily by High Plains Journal in the past years. And so this year, for 2025, we have the opportunity to combine all the various components of each of those individual programs that have been held previously into one multi-day event that's going to be called this year as High Plains Journal Live, and that'll be here coming up in early August in Wichita, and the dates for that program are August 6th through the 8th, and it'll be held at the CenturyLink Performing Arts Center and Convention Center.
Is there a lot of K-State involvement in this event?
We were really fortunate to have the opportunity to work with High Plains Journal on this program here. Now going on the third year that K-State has really been heavily involved with this program, and particularly on the beef cattle side of things that I'd like to mention here today for the purposes of our discussion. But certainly K-State Research and Extension has played a real integral role in the forming and the development of this program. And we have a number of speakers representing K-State that are going to be on the program this year across a wide variety of species disciplines and expertise areas from livestock production, beef cattle production, crops, agronomy, soil health, and of course, agricultural economics. And so really the real value, I think, for producers this year, again, as we've really designed it in the last couple of years, is this is a great opportunity for really fundamental, practical, usable information that folks can take and directly apply. And so for our diversified producers, crop and livestock producers, as we think about a multi-day event that really has the opportunity to serve a lot of their needs and provide usable information regardless of what their background or what their production operation looks like, here's the opportunity for that this year.
And as we do focus a bit more towards beef cattle, who are some of the K-State speakers that will be talking on that subject?
The folks that we have representing K-State this year on the beef cattle side of things, myself, Dr. A.J. Tarpoff, our beef cattle extension veterinarian, and Dr. Dale Blasi, our beef extension specialist, and my colleagues from the Department of Animal Sciences and Industry, and then also, too, Dr. Glenn Tonzer and Dr. Jenny Ifft from the Department of Agricultural Economics are going to be on the program as well, too. And so we're really excited about the topics that each of those speakers are going to help cover and deliver this year for 2025. And so jumping into the program just a little bit, the program really kicks off on Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday, August 6th. And so Dr. Blasi will be discussing some key things to keep in mind and to cover and approach with regards to backgrounding cattle, growth, and nutrition. And his session is at 4 o'clock there on Wednesday afternoon. And we're really excited about that talk. Dr. Blasi's done a lot of work, especially in recent years with regards to dietary strategies for growing cattle, especially with regards to limit feeding and the impact that has on growth and performance, but then also two other management considerations as well too. And so he's really an excellent resource for us in that space when we think about properly growing and backgrounding cattle during that time period from weaning all the way up until those cattle get ready to enter into the finishing phase. And so as we think about this program being held in early August, as we think about folks making management decisions regardless if they're getting ready to wean and manage their own ranch direct calves or if they background and grow calves for folks on a custom basis, there'll be a lot of good applicable information that'll be geared for folks in that area. And then Dr. Ifft has a discussion later on that same afternoon, a little bit later in the day, about livestock risk and insurance management options, and she's an excellent resource in that field when we think about livestock risk protection, the various insurance tools that are out there, and there's always a lot of questions from producers around the use of those products and how to apply them into their operations, and so really excited for that discussion as well too. As we look forward to Thursday morning, we'll kick the morning off with a panel that's really going to be focused on looking at ways and strategies where producers and specifically cow-calf producers can create and capture additional value for the calves that they're marketing. And so we'll have a panel discussion and I'll help moderate that discussion. And really the idea is to help generate knowledge and ideas for how we can create additional value for calves, ways where we can work with our downstream production partners, those folks in the industry that are later on in the production chain. We think about our backgrounders, our feedlot operators, and understand why calves are priced at the price ranges that they are, why we see those price ranges in the marketplace, ways where we can, again, create and capture additional value and ways where we need to build relationships with our ultimate customers in the beef production chain. So we're really excited about that general discussion there, and really, again, more oriented towards cow-calf producers, but certainly, for folks regardless of your specific role in the beef industry, regardless of what your sector is or your production segment is, certainly has value there. Later on that same day on Thursday, the 7th, Dr. Tarpoff will be doing a beef quality assurance certification program, and that's a great opportunity for folks that if they need to renew or to establish their beef quality assurance training certification, here's an excellent opportunity for them to be able to do that. And there'll be a couple of different sessions where Dr. Tarpoff will offer that to our producer audiences. And so, again, it's a great opportunity to be able to have that in conjunction with this program so folks are attending, and that's something that maybe they haven't done in recent years or maybe done for the last few years. Again, a great opportunity to be able to get that. And I think as we think about the topics that we're going to be covering this year, as we think about making strategic management decisions for folks as they go into later summer, early fall time period, when folks are traditionally, when we think about our spring calving producers around the region, going to be getting ready to wean calves and make marketing decisions and feeding and management decisions. And of course, beef quality assurance is all part of that. That all really fits in there very well. Later on in the afternoon, Dr. Tonzer will give a beef cattle production price and marketing outlook, and Dr. Tonzer is very well known for these talks. These are always very interesting and something that our audiences always have a tremendous amount of interest around, and so there's always a lot of really good information that Dr. Tonzer delivers with his marketing outlooks, and so we're really pleased and excited to have that on the program this year. And then Dr. Ifft and Jenny Ifft will again discuss later on Thursday afternoon things related with the Farm Bill and agricultural policy. She'll share some updates with regards to where the federal government is with many of their programs up till this point here in 2025. And certainly as we think about the environment that we're in from a production and marketing standpoint, that's certainly going to be a very pertinent topic. And I'm sure there will be lots of questions around that general topic here again this year. So that's kind of the outline for for the various topics that we have this year with regards to beef cattle. But again, there's a lot of additional information and topics that are going to be applicable for producers, if they're row crop producers, forage producers, just a lot of really good usable information there. And the sessions are structured such that the topics and the discipline areas are spread out across the event. So if folks only attend 1 or 2 days, they can get a nice piece of information or a nice balance of information, crop and livestock or forage and livestock information, regardless of which day that they attend the program.
What does registration look like?
So registration is currently open. Folks can go online to live.hpj.com to register. And again, that address is live.hpj.com. We do ask that folks register in advance. If you decide to attend the day of or walk-in registration, that's certainly available too for folks that attend that day. But we do ask that folks register in advance if they can at all do that. And all registration is done online there. And then also too, information for cost on registration and then discounts as the program is farther out. That all information is available online on the website. So again, August 6th through the 8th, 2025, here coming up at the Century 2 Performing Arts Center and Convention Center in Wichita will be the dates. And again, a really nicely balanced program that we're really excited about, and we feel that from the standpoint of being centrally located, when we think about our major region, or it's being centrally located here this year in Wichita, that's a great service for producers and an excellent opportunity for them to be able to come in and get some good usable information.
Jason, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thanks, Shelby. Appreciate it.
That was K-State Cow-Calf Extension Specialist Jason Warner. As he mentioned, you can find more information about the High Plains Journal Live Conference at live.hpj.com. I will link it in today's show notes on agtoday.net. We're cutting to a short break now, but stick around because we have more for you up ahead. You're tuned back into Agriculture Today, and we continue our show with part of a podcast episode from the Barry Flinchbaugh Center for Ag and Food Policy. This podcast episode was recorded at the beginning of June, so events after the recording date are not covered in this analysis. This podcast episode is titled The Flinchbaugh Focus, Thumbs Up or Thumbs Down on the Economy. This podcast is hosted by Eric Atkinson, friend of Dr. Flinchbaugh and former host of Agriculture Today. For this episode, he interviews Dr. Mark Edelman, Professor Emeritus, longtime agricultural policy specialist at Iowa State University, Dr. Jenny Ifft, Professor and Extension Specialist and Flinchbaugh Agricultural Policy Chair at K-State, and Dr. Brad Lubin, Agriculture Extension Professor and Agriculture and Policy Specialist at the University of Nebraska at Lincoln.
The total value of U.S. agricultural trade. And Brad, set the table here on this, if you would.
Well, first off, to see our chart over the last 20 years, we have generally seen growth in exports and growth in imports. Yes, we're a major agricultural producer in the world, and we're a major exporter of those ag products. We also are the number one consumer market in the world, and we're a major importer of many ag products as well. Often, maybe most of the time, those are complementary products. We export grains and we export meat and we import coffee and other exotic fruits and so forth. Sometimes they appear to be competing products. We actually export beef and import beef at the same time. Well, but it is different. We export higher value cuts. We tend to import lean trim that complements our ground beef production in the U.S. But what we have seen here is that exports have actually fallen back in the last couple of years. 23 and 24 have fallen back from the record of 22. Imports, however, have continued to push higher. And we actually have a rather sizable trade deficit, even in agriculture, which is one of the sectors we historically always said was one of the few U.S. sectors that ran a trade surplus. Well, right now we're running a trade deficit. And some of the challenges we see with U.S. exports and trade policy don't really tell a better tale of this going forward. So it's a thumbs down at the moment until we see better signs of what's going on in the trade front.
I would agree with a very qualified thumbs down. I don't think having the trade deficit per se is a bad thing. So, what we're importing is less of a concern. What I worry about is that we're going to have trouble exporting the things that we're good at producing. And the fact that exports are stagnant after sort of a general upward trend for a long time is what really concerns me.
I would add to that, if we think about who are our top ag export markets, it's Canada, Mexico, China, and the European Union. And then you ask the question of who, as far as the trade negotiations, have we been poking in the eye to get them to try to strike a better trade? Well, it's that same group. Perhaps the new one on the front is we'd like to export more to India. It's a possibility. Japan has always been a good customer too, but I'm reminded of the story that Barry always used to tell about when he was on this was back 40 years ago in a different environment, but he was on a League of Women Voters panel to discuss the high price of meat with somebody that represented the beef industry at that time, and the cowboy got flustered about how much the steak cost when they asked the question. And he said, "Steak is good for you, buy it and shut up." Barry then commented, "How many pounds of beef do you think you sold with that steak?" So, there's some real questions about if we make our potential allies really uncertain about our goals in trade negotiations publicly, will we be able to get them to come around to settle on a positive trade policy for us when the dust settles? That's a big question that we'll see if the president can pull a rabbit out of his hat.
A fair amount of uncertainty in any event on that one. Let's talk about those farmland values, the U.S. inflation-adjusted farmland values, these on a dollar per acre basis here. And we've marveled at how farmland values have risen remarkably over the last decade or so. Where are we at now, and what do you think we're going to see in the future here, Brad?
Farmland values have effectively doubled in the last 20 years. In real terms, it has been a prime investment opportunity, and some of the non-ag sector is recognizing that that's a great opportunity relative, or it has been a great opportunity relative to other markets. But if you also look at the picture ahead, you see concerns about profitability, you see concerns about cash flow, you see concerns about future market prospects, and you're wondering, how can we continue to drive these land values where we're at? Land values have gone up and they've continued to climb, perhaps as a result of the last few years of very strong profitability, maybe accumulated capital. And we still have other farmers being the predominant buyer of farmland. We talk about outside investors, we talk about equity money getting into agriculture, and yet it's farmers bidding against farmers that are driving these farmland values higher. So it's still driven by fundamentals in the ag market to date. And there is question and expectation that it may level off here with current economic concerns in agriculture, but it's still a relatively strong, it's got a strong base, and looks like it's a relatively strong market for the time being. So I've still given it a thumbs up, even if I'm less certain about the future direction here.
Mark?
I'm going to go with a slight thumbs down because I see farmland values softening this next year, in part because I don't think the net farm income is not going to be there as to justify a continued rise in farmland value that we've seen in recent past. So I'm going to go slight thumbs down.
So we have conflict finally. Jenny, break the tie.
Well, oh gosh, this is a strength for those who own land and are involved in farming. The strong balance sheet, it does help you weather rough economic times, and there's a lot of factors other than the farm economy that do prop up farmland values. I'd also say the softening might be the sign of a healthy farmland market. The farmland market should reflect the underlying economic fundamentals. It's as if we go beyond the softening that I worry about. Also, strong farmland values do create some challenges for young and beginning and small farms.
I would ask each of you to offer a summary comment on the economy broadly, the ag economy more narrowly, and your gut feeling about the lay of the land here as we move through the next half a year or so. Brad, start us off.
If I'm painting an economic picture, what's ahead for the next, let's say, 12 to 24 months or so, the ag economy faces more pressure as we worry about markets, as export market opportunities, as we worry about uncertainty in the policy arena. The general economy also faces pressure as we deal with the continued growth in the federal budget deficit, the continued growth in the accumulated federal debt, the direction for the general economy. So there are signals and concerns and maybe more uncertainty than ever for the outlook. We are still building off of a very strong base. And so we're not necessarily falling into a great deep trough here, but the outlook ahead for the next few months is a little more challenging than it's been.
Yeah, for my summary, I guess I would say I have a great deal of confidence that the Federal Reserve, as long as it's allowed to remain independent in making its decisions, that it will successfully manage the general economy. My real concern is focused on the ag economy, and I think the ag economy, we need to get to work. We need to get to work on getting the trade deals done, and we need to get to work to allow biofuels the capacity to utilize domestically what we're producing. And I think that's basically who we're selling to is our food customers, our fuel customers, and our international trade customers. And right now, we aren't expanding the population very fast domestically. And so when you hear words that we need to sell more domestically, we're talking about, well, let's look at fuels. And we can produce some additional biofuels for sustainable aviation fuel going forward, and that would certainly help the sector out tremendously. And we need to get those rabbits pulled out of the hat on trade to get the trade markets up there.
All right, I'll start with the macroeconomy. I think overall we're coming from a place of strength and resilience, notwithstanding the long-term challenge with the federal spending and deficit. Definitely some short-term challenges as well with uncertainty around trade and GDP. On the farm sector side, there definitely is a lot of resilience, and the livestock sector is generally doing pretty well. That's cyclical. I do worry about where crop farms are, and I know the financial situation is a real mixed bag. You know, there's more established producers or producers that have managed to build up some liquidity over the past years who are prepared to weather the storm. But I know in Kansas and other states, we've also seen some farms that have had financial difficulties in the last few years. And I did look at 2025 forecast farm income. And even with the government payments, it looks like debt repayment is going to be an issue for a lot of corn, soybean, and wheat farm businesses. So there are indicators of financial stress out there with liquidity. And again, it's a very mixed bag. But you combine that with the market and trade uncertainty, I think that there are definitely some real headwinds out there. And, you know, like Brad and Mark said, hopefully some of these trade deals materialize and we get to a more stable position.
Once again, that was part of a podcast episode from the Barry Flinchbaugh Center for Ag and Food Policy. You can find this full podcast episode by going online to flinchbaughcenter.com. I will link it in today's show notes on agtoday.net as well. We're cutting to a short break now on Agriculture Today, but we'll be right back.
This is Agriculture Today. Along with Shelby Varner, I'm Jeff Wickman. For this week's Lawn and Garden segment, K-State horticultural entomologist Raymond Cloyd has an update on bagworms, European elm flea weevils, grasshoppers, and a publication on tomatoes that he's put together for commercial growers. Raymond, we're seeing more activity out and around in the home landscape, and bagworms is something that we always seem to have a problem with.
This is the time of year when you should be looking for those 1/4-inch, 1/8-inch bags, the caterpillars inside, and when you see them eating away, you need to treat. Our recommendation is the Bacillus thuringiensis kirstaki, also known as BTK, and then spinosad. They work very well on bagworms and other caterpillars. Once they get bigger than 1/2 inch, Jeff, then you got to use something else. But right now, so you can spray, you can hand pick them, put them in soapy water and kill them. I was in Pottawatomie County last week, and we saw the small bagworms active on some junipers. So yeah, they're out. If you know you have thulias or junipers or other conifers, and of course they just don't feed on conifers, a lot of roses and honey locusts and trees. When you see them, you spray. Probably have to make one application once a week for about 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the population. And mainly because 2 reasons. One, the larvae or caterpillars don't emerge from the egg simultaneously. And of course, as we've talked before, they overwinter as eggs in the female bags, not the male bags. And then they'll balloon. Once they come out, they'll go to the top of a tree and they'll form a silken, and they go around and around. So you may get an infestation from somebody maybe half a mile away because of that, especially when it's a windy day. There is extension publication on a bagworm. It has everything you need to know about timing of applications, what to use, and non-insecticidal means of dealing with bagworms also.
European elm flea weevils, is that something that's new?
Really, it isn't new, Jeff. We have it almost every year on the elm trees. European elm weevil is very interesting. It's a leaf miner in the early larval stages, and then it goes to the edge, and people are seeing these brown edges on their elms and shot hole-like. That's from the adults. The adults are a beetle. It's a weevil, and so right now they're feeding, causing the shot hole appearance on the elms. You can spray, but really it's getting close to too late. You're not going to save the tree aesthetically once the damage is done. So we have an extension publication on that one. You can download it online, and it'll give you all the information you need about the biology, behavior, the damage, and how to manage European elm weevils. I know people are mentioning systemic insecticides, but it's really too late to apply them. Those should have been applied early on when the larvae were present in the leaves, but now with the adults out, you're really not going to have much activity against them.
Grasshoppers are also getting more active?
Grasshoppers are prevalent. We've had a number of calls outdoor and indoor in hoop houses. The problem is there's not many options. I have looked into Nolobate and Semaspore and gotten feedback that those two products are no longer available. What those were a protozoa, Nosema lecketzi, that was very specific on grasshoppers. And it would either sterilize the females or eventually kill them. But the availability of it is now questionable. The problem with grasshoppers is insecticides, especially adults, because of that waxy cuticle skin, the insecticide doesn't bind to the skin very well, so that it doesn't penetrate. Now, you could add a surfactant or spreader sticker, but again, they're coming in from all over. Weed management's always important. Keep weeds down as much as you can. You can use a little net, get some kids, pay them $25 an hour to go pick and crush with a badminton racket, grasshoppers, whatever. But really, that's it. There was another product. I do not know if it's still commercially available. It was a brand with carbaryl, which is 7, which has been coming off the market. But I think that's for ag use only. I don't know if it's the homeowners, I don't think, can buy it. So it's very limited options for grasshoppers right now. But they're still causing damage on a lot of plants, ornamentals, herbs, and vegetables.
Also wanted to point out that you have a new publication.
Yes, just came out. I want to acknowledge the people over at the Communications. They're all wonderful to work with, called Insect and Mite Pests of Greenhouse-Grown Tomatoes. It's commercially available online now, I understand it, through the bookstore. And if you're growing tomatoes in a hoop house or greenhouse, this would be a publication you'd want to refer to.
That's K-State horticultural entomologist Raymond Cloyd. In addition to extension publications available online, you can also contact your local extension office for more information regarding insect pests in the home landscape. And that'll do it for this edition of Agriculture Today. For Shelby Varner, I'm Jeff Wickman. This is the K-State Radio Network.